This episode first aired on our new channel, Leaders in Tech and E-commerce podcast. It covers supply chain tech in depth. We do hope you enjoy it and feel free to follow our other podcast as well for the latest episodes.
I'm happy to have with us today Ashish Pujari. Ash leads the solution management for SAP Digital Supply Chain in Asia Pacific and Japan and Greater China. He has 28 years of experience in this space and he has seen it all. He has been a practitioner, consultant, entrepreneur, sales leader, and value engineer, all in the space of supply chain management. With SAP, Ash joined to lead the digital supply chain and IoT line of business for APJ region, where he oversaw a triple-digit growth in the cloud business. His current mandate is to help set up an Industry 4.0 lab in Japan, along with driving the design to operate solution portfolio in the region. Prior to SAP, Ash was part of Asia leadership teams for Manugistics, JDA, Capgemini, and SSA Global, now called Info. In a few numbers, because SAP has 100,000 employees and 437,000 plus customers in all industries and in all sizes. They include 92% of Forbes Global 2000 and 98% of the world's top 100 most valued brands. The company's revenue for 2019 was 27.5 billion euro. Hi Ashish, pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for including me, Andre. How are you doing?
I'm good, but everybody else is trying to solve challenges left and right, and supply chains are under a huge amount of stress. Governments are scrambling to inject cash into their economies, and companies are trying to stay afloat. Your company, SAP, works with thousands of clients around the world, and you personally have been in APAC leadership roles for more than a decade. I mean, it's impressive, and you mostly have focused on supply chain and manufacturing. I wanted to get your take on the current situation and get some of the good case studies or some of the challenges and solutions that your clients face during these times. So let's start with the first question. What are some ripple effects and issues that propagate within supply networks at this moment globally and maybe in APAC? I know each market has their own circumstance. Maybe you can give us your perspective.
Interesting question, Andre. I will try to stay away from stating the obvious. Yeah, because everyone says the same thing these days. The moment, as in when you mention the moment, as in now, is an unprecedented situation, and we all know that, right? Global supply chains have broken. Algorithms, simulations, AI, and data can only do so much. Supply chain heads and chief procurement officers today are working 24/7 to figure out supplies, allocate scarce supplies to plants, orders, customers, and they are just scrambling. So it's a scrappy situation, but they are scrambling to make things happen. Ripple effects are multiple, but at the end of the end customer will need to take the hit. The hit of non-availability of product, hit of uncertain delivery, and eventually the hit on price. And I feel these are the ripple effects that are kind of going to permeate for a very long time.
Yes, I agree. And I think we haven't yet felt the price pressure or the price pain, and it's still to come, and it's definitely coming. I don't know how many people are aware of it and will expect it, especially the end consumer, but it's definitely out there. Maybe we can talk a bit about opportunities or silver linings that maybe you have seen in your portfolio of clients or partners. I know there is an estimated 70% of the global supply of raw material is controlled by China. And it seems like now China, it's recovering, is doing better, and they have started some manufacturing facilities, if not most. What are the silver linings from your perspective? What are some opportunities that you see?
I like your positive attitude, Andre. Silver linings for sure. I feel this situation is an alarm bell to corporations who took outsourcing and cost arbitrage to the maximum. So they are now thinking of redefining their networks so that sourcing and manufacturing can be located near consumption points. And I'm when I talk to chief supply chain officers, this is coming more and more. Silver lining for some logistics companies, I can see that as well. In fact, I was talking to a CEO of an air cargo company who was beaming since demand on some of the lanes are on an all-time high, and so are rates. So air freight is going through the roof for certain critical items. You could say, face masks, hand sanitizers, and other medical equipment. Silver lining is also in the way we engage with customers, right? Online meetings are getting accepted in almost all cultures. Could you have imagined this, that, with Japanese customers having a Zoom call, a face-to-face online call would ever work? But it is working. So obviously, this will reduce travel and ultimately benefit the environment as well, and bring families much closer. So I see all this as silver lining through the situation now.
Yes, I think there are a lot of jokes because people are trying to make the best out of the case about how this corona situation has done most or better for the environment than any other activists have managed. And the situation, definitely we can look at it as a silver lining.
True.
But going back to the talks that you have with your clients, so air cargo, air freight, they're in a good spot for now. Good spot from a pricing perspective. Difficult spot from making everything happen because it's a huge amount of pressure on them. You talk with quite a few leaders from different industries. What type of priorities do you advise your clients to focus on? How do you manage this, the questions that come from their side?
So, Andre, our advice to customers is twofold. Customers are really scrambling, right? So, while they are looking for advice, they are not looking for sermons. So, for the near term, what we are advising is use a lightweight technology to do some scenario management. For the mid long term, create a robust model for supply chain risk mitigation. So SAP and our partners, we are working on creating these low cost, low risk packages to address the near term and mid long term. So if you go to sap.com, for instance, you will be able to view 3 such offers from the digital supply chain portfolio, wherein, at zero to minimal cost for a period of time, 90 days in this particular case, we are offering certain services, helping the customers to kind of simulate their supply chains and make some decisions. So we are creating those decision support kind of solutions, and also creating visibility across the chain. In addition, the offers from SAP Ariba, and again, if you go to sap.com, you will see these as well. These further complement these solutions that we are talking about, where customers can manage their upstream supply risks better. So yeah, there is always a mix of how much short term and how much long term you want to push and discuss with customers at this point in time.
That's very good point, and I think we have to come together and we have to come with solutions on the short term. Everybody's fighting fires nowadays. Can you tell us a bit more? So when you say a minimal investment it's all, and also on the short term, does this also imply a shorter implementation duration and complexity? How does implementation get managed?
So these are very quick simulations. We are very quick turn-ons of the supply chain solutions. Also, our partner ecosystem has been enabled and geared to make these happen very quickly. Because if we wait for 9 months for these things to be delivered, then the purpose is lost.
Correct, I agree. And out of the clients that you already have or you already work with, is there anyone that stands out and who has already been improving on their digital transformation and stands out as a good example of facing these challenges? Somebody who has not been disrupted as much as the average organization when it comes to the supply chain?
It's a fine line, so I'll be careful when I articulate this, yeah, Andre, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that, because the entire effect of this disruption is still not over, right? So we need to make sure that what I'm saying does not have a bearing to the long tail of this disruption. So I remember the 2011 earthquake in Japan and how overnight the supply chains of large corporations took a massive hit, right? There were talks about taking a hard look and creating redundancies in the supply chain to mitigate such disasters in the future. A whole lot of discussion happening, large consulting firms getting involved, and they taking a mid-long term view. However, after a few years, companies have fallen back to old practices and have been hit hard with the current disruption. Having said that, I believe the Japanese automotive companies, some of them, have worked out a mitigation strategy due to the earthquake and the Thailand floods that they have applied in the current scenario. This includes alternate sourcing strategies, flexible manufacturing with make versus buy decisions, and managing inbound and outbound logistics constraints. While I'm yet to get the final report from those customers that I'm talking about, I have been hearing that they have managed to weather the storm better than others, at least till this point in time.
It's interesting, and definitely Japan is a market in a country that has been hit by different crises in the last few years. I was reading somewhere that mapping your upstream suppliers several years back, and it takes such a long time, depending on the complexity of, and of course, of the scale. But for a big organization in Japan, it took a few weeks for them to be able to finish that. And after they had a clear perspective on their suppliers, they could better prepare themselves for disruption. Do you see this mapping and having a clear visibility a few tiers back? I mean, not only tier one, but tier two, and even. Do you see this as being an important aspect of fighting this crisis?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the key things that these companies have done well is understanding these critical parts that they need, and some of them are honestly single sourced. So they needed to make those decisions of having multiple sources for these critical parts and going through yet another round of QA and stringent quality processes around these, which take not just weeks, it sometimes takes months. So they have gone through those, and that really has helped them, that they have visibility into alternate parts, which are spread across different regions, different geographies, and they also have different lead times as well. So yes, these are some of the strategies, absolutely.
And because we're talking about the technology aspect, I actually read an article you wrote about the concept of intelligent enterprises. And you were speaking there about organizations that effectively use data assets and machine learning to automate routine tasks or make better decisions. And my question would be, how can company use their huge volumes of data and the latest tech to translate them in actionable insights in this period? I don't know if there are examples or maybe certain sectors that you see that are doing better than others, but is this combination of a huge volume of data and machine learning working towards a better outcome during this period?
I'm a big believer in data-driven supply chain. So I completely endorse it. But let me just get into the conversation on this. Yeah. So most companies we engage with are obviously sitting on a huge pool of data, and they are customers of SAP. They use the SAP transaction system. They use the SAP extended systems, and data keeps coming in. So this data could be customer data, customer data, asset usage data, human capital data, output data, supplier data, you just name it. So data is everywhere. So let's take a specific case since you asked. Say the case of asset data. So give you an example, a large chemical company in this region in APJ was severely affected during this crisis. And they're still going through that process. Some of their products have seen demand that they haven't ever seen before, right? It's through the roof. While some are sitting on zero demand. So certain categories, zero demand, certain categories, absolutely, 200% demand. Consequently, the assets and production lines supporting these product lines are also in a very similar state. So while some lines are being pushed to the limit, other lines are sitting and idling, right? So this company took all its data and used tools like, say, asset strategy and performance management to decide on revising the maintenance schedules of their assets and tied that to their spares inventory as well. So while they needed uptime of these assets that were running 24 by 7, they needed to revise the entire maintenance and spares of the ones that are idling. So they had to make sure that the lines in demand don't break down. Hence, a predictive maintenance process was instituted. And for others, the standard maintenance was tweaked. And all this, honestly, was done using AI, ML, and analytics on this huge pool of data that they are sitting on. So it absolutely works.
I think the important part here is that you really have the data at hand, and the data is accurate and is reliable. That's a different conversation for sure.
Yes.
And when we talk about good examples and companies doing the right things, it's also interesting to switch that around and then think about what not to do. Because I mean, it's even easier to always it's easier to criticize, but in this case, it's always good to learn from mistakes. Are there certain things that you would advise or you see different companies doing that are not to do on the list of not to do, or worst behavior, so to speak? Is there anything you could share here? Because everybody, when things are hot and the fire is hot, you panics. But what are things that we shouldn't do as a company?
Yeah, there is always an ideal situation, and there is always a situation on the ground, right? So crisis always leads to a lot of desperation, and we all know that. And sometimes decision making is clouded by pressure. So cost of operations becomes a key topic as well, right, in this whole crisis. While companies need to figure out ways and means of satisfying customer demands better, I think this is an opportunity to get closer to their suppliers, logistics providers, technology providers, and other ecosystems partners to ensure a win-win, or should I say, survive, right, for all. So, the more you're transparent, the more you're collaborating, the better those companies will understand the pressures you are in, and you understand them better, and you kind of work out something that works for all. The other aspect that I see is people. So rather than taking, say, knee-jerk reactions and announcing mass layoffs, etc., companies should have closer collaboration with employees and jointly figure out how to manage this pain, right? I mean, employees are loyal employees. They want your own company to thrive. So they will help you figure these things out better. If you have ideas, you bounce it past them, and they will 9 times out of 10 they will understand and they'll comply. If that means, say, redeployment of your people, salary cuts, it's still better than layoffs, isn't it?
Hmm. I think you touch on a very important aspect of crisis management, and this is how you treat and how you communicate to your employees. I saw an interesting news recently. I think it was last week from Grab and Gojek, who are cutting 20% of their leadership teams to support their drivers, partners, merchants, um, employees. After all, I think that's to be shared, and I think it's good to look up to these kind of actions. Mm, What else or what other things do you think leadership should do to promote this safety feeling and also to engage with their employees and get their ideas and, after all, fight this crisis together?
Well, you know, as I mentioned, companies should over communicate and be transparent and be honest. You got to tell your employees, your ecosystem, your partners in crime that we are doing this. This is our current strategy to mitigate the the effect of a disruption like this in the near term, so that they are better prepared. So in my mind, surprises leads to issues. And if we can minimize that, because people are already surprised with this whole outbreak, and you shouldn't be making it worse. So I would think the strategy is simple. Look at how quickly you can influence the masses, which is your own employees, your ecosystem, and all that, with certain ideas around a near term and a mid long term, so that they understand that the company is not getting completely wound up with only solving the near term. And I think that is a very effective way to mitigate the stress in the entire system.
Mm. Definitely, over communicating is one of them. Making sure you say the same thing 10 times until somebody. And I mean, communication from leadership is what keeps people's hopes high and the safety
Yeah.
feeling, and of course them engaged. And we talked, and you touched upon the topic of partnering with of partnerships in general. We saw some interesting examples. One of them came from Australia, where an airline who has been affected quite drastically has relocated some of their workforce towards one of their partnering retails, one of the largest retail groups in Australia. Are there other interesting examples in this partnership direction, and what is your take on this?
So I firmly believe that when you use the word partner, it is extremely powerful. So one needs to be careful about using that word partner in a loose form, right?
Hmm.
So because it really defines a very symbiotic relationship between two entities that would share good times and tough times together. So partnerships are often long term. So in times like this, partnerships can help, provided there is complete honesty and transparency. And I think I'm repeating myself here. So I've seen these work in certain countries in Asia between shippers and logistics providers. I was talking to a very large consumer goods company. It's a global company, but the head of supply chain sits in Singapore for this part of the world. And his view was that in order to make sure that they kind of level out this whole demand supply imbalance, they have been working very closely with their third party logistics company and making sure that neither capacities nor price increases nor a surge in demand is going to break the chain. So they're saying we basically opened up completely, saying for these categories in these locations the demand surge is there and your lanes are constricted. uh, can we work together to see if you guys can go ahead and recruit another partner, and we don't mind that, and we can onboard them quickly together, so that it's a three-party consortium trying to address the supply chain logistics challenge. um, that should work, and it seems that has worked very effectively for them this particular month of March. So you know again, partnerships during difficult times is it will work only if partners are honest and they want to work as a partner.
Mm. I think you're right, and it has to come from past of working together and sharing both the successes and the failures, so to speak, and then it's easier to have the trust relationship where you can share information, you can have a plan together, you can even share the workforce and so on. We also saw quite a number of companies shifting their production or shifting their product towards helping the efforts. Even I think you shared about Zara shifting their production to manufacture hospital scrubs. Different manufacturers from Foxconn to Sharp are changing a few things. Do you think more companies should make this a priority, given the fact that the crisis might take months? Do you think what's your take on this?
It's for the first time, honestly, in my working career, I have seen this agility of certain organizations to address the pressing need of the moment. Yeah, so it's really heartening. So obviously, this is a global crisis. Every individual and company that cares would want to do their bit, right? So size of help, honestly, in this particular line doesn't matter. So whether you call it, say, LVMH doing something, or Zara or Gap, you know, and some of these more leading names, have joined this whole Sharp, Foxconn, etc., in helping, and nothing wrong with that, unless this is done for the sake of cheap publicity. And we need to kind of make sure that this is done with genuinely feeling from the heart. So should this be a priority? Uh, from my point, this is debatable. Priority in my mind stays the same as before. Um, Employees, customers, and shareholders. So if the additional activity complements these and makes the world a better place, then absolutely, why not? One should go ahead and do that. But the priority of an organization remains the same, whether there's a crisis or not.
Mm, correct. Um, let's go to the team side of the topic. I wanted to ask, because everybody's working, or a lot of people are working from home, working remotely, um, trying to be efficient at doing this.
Yeah.
I know SAP is doing the same. I know you have to manage both your team and clients all over the world by the tools the internet puts at our disposal. How are you enabling your team and SAP's enabling the teams to work from home? What are the challenges and what are the positive aspects that you see here?
Well, let me paint this scenario as of now, right? I live in a house in Singapore, and there are four members in my family who are all online right now. So I'm connected in a room, um, and talking to you over Zoom. My wife is on at a different level in a different room, and she's doing her work, so she's connected as well. My son, who studies in the US, he is doing online classes and taking online classes as well, because he teaches there as well. My daughter, who's in school in Singapore, is attending classes online. So life is very different, and we have all adapted to that. So SAP actually allows a whole lot of tools for online meetings as long as they conform to our security standard. Microsoft Teams is something that is widely used along with Skype. To be honest, work from home for some of us is not a new concept. Uh, because SAP has always had this flexible arrangement. Even before the crisis, a large chunk of the workforce worked from home as and when the situation demanded. So no additional tools have been discussed, honestly speaking. Obviously, some security standards have been installed and all that, but that's about it. What we have been encouraging our teams is see if they need something to make their home office better, be it, say, having a printer, be it having better chairs and all that. But that's about it.
And it's a good point. I mean, you have a history of working from home, so it's always good that you get these lessons learned and then you apply them now.
Right.
A lot of companies are trying to figure things out as they go. You touch on security, and I think even Zoom had some bad publicity around that. How do you see the topic of cybersecurity? And I know it's very connected to technology in this case, but have you seen clients strengthen their cybersecurity standards to guarantee a safer work from home policy?
Wow, this is a topic completely beyond me, Andre. I am sure that's happening. We sometimes when you work for large corporations, you take these things for granted. I have seen, within SAP this happening. We had to click on certain buttons to make sure that our computers are, compliant to these new security standards and all that. But this is not my strength, and I won't even bother going there.
No, but like you said, I know SAP has so many layers, and you have to make sure everything is in order until
Yeah,
when you have the working from home policy and so on.
right.
And going through to the hiring topic, I know there's a lot of companies who have put hiring on hold or are delaying some decisions. How is hiring affected for SAP?
Hmm. Um, I would let's talk about from a from a business standpoint. We are clear that if there is a business critical hire to be done, we would go ahead with it. And I'll give you an example. So I've last 6 odd months I've been working on building what we call as a supply chain innovation lab around the whole Industry 4.0 topic in Japan. And we had already secured the headcounts for those, and that we see as business critical for us because we have already engaged with customers, we have started some co-innovation with customers, and we have started the process of making sure that there is a lot of adoption of our solutions in the customer environment there. So we would not hold that back. We would go ahead and do that. We'll hire those people. However, um, most companies I know or the ones I'm talking to are suggesting selective hiring, right? Focus is on talent retention rather than talent scouting and hiring. That's something that I'm hearing and I'm seeing around myself. With the emphasis on companies trying to kind of leapfrog others and become a data driven enterprise, I'm seeing a small surge in demand for, say, analysts, supply chain planners, data sciences kind of guys. Um, and I see that happen because uh, you know we discussed that right in the initial part of our discussion right now that we want to make these processes more data driven, more automated, to make sure that there is a certain amount of resilience built in for the future.
I know a lot of our clients, candidates in the same time, are in a situation where you have a bit more flexibility working from home, where you can also take advantage of online education and you can polish or even learn new skills. Do you think these data focused skills, analytics, business intelligence, planning are the highest in demand at the moment? If you were to give advice to somebody, what are the skills he or she should learn or focus on at the moment, would these be the ones?
Absolutely. And I said it already, right? That we are seeing that with the whole Industry 4.0 objectives kicking in, with data-driven supply chains, data-driven enterprises kicking in, intelligent technologies being deployed at scale, and it's no more POCs; they are being deployed at scale now. We are seeing more and more the requirement of uh, experts who understand the management of data and usage of this data for superior outcomes. So absolutely, these are the skills that are in demand and will stay in demand as we try to build in redundancies in supply chain out of these kind of disruptions that keep hitting us.
Mm. As we get closer to the last questions, I wanted to ask you, Ashish. So APAC as a whole is quite diverse. Do you see any of the APAC markets that are doing a better job, both in economic terms, maybe recovering better, or even I don't know, coming up with innovations compared to others? Are there certain markets where you see a higher demand in your products, in your business?
Well, the crisis part of it is still not over, right? As I mentioned, that the tail is going to be long. But from the early indications that we are getting, the momentum that existed in 2019 or the tail end of 2019 seems to still go on. So if you talk about, say the mining and resources companies in Australia, and they're trying to reinvent themselves, um, uh, those discussions are still on. They haven't pulled the plug out of that. Or you talk about these big, large chemical companies or oil and gas companies in North Asia, wherein they were looking at how can we make their, help them make their assets as more and more intelligent, and make sure that the cost of servicing of those assets are going down while the uptime is managed. Those discussions are still going on. So I think if people have come out with certain ideas for a long-term digital transformation, those are still on the map. Um, Obviously, there is a scrambling going on. There are certain priorities that are being kind of shifted. But I would think as soon as things get into control, these initiatives will be back on the radar.
And I think Asia is in a better position to recover faster than, unfortunately, Europe and US, we were talking before the recording, that they are in a bad shape for the moment. So hopefully it will be better.
Yeah.
Now, as a last thought from your side, what should we expect in the next few months, and how should we prepare as supply chain professionals?
Wow, that is a profound question. So the threat of this deadly virus is very real, right? I mean, while governments all over the world are trying to contain the spread, the situation is extremely fluid. This is the time for supply chain heads to do some smart scenario planning using intelligent technologies. They should cover their entire cycle of design to operate, starting with getting some real customer experience data, taking a hard look at product design so that it's in line with the customer expectations, improve planning and manufacturing to be more data driven, use networks to ensure smart logistics simulations and end-to-end visibility, and kind of take the time to make their assets smarter. So obviously this will not happen simultaneously, but defining the vision to create supply chain resilience is key. You remember the old joke, Andre? How do you eat an elephant? And
Yes.
the answer being one bit at a time, right? So companies need to prioritize and act now. So one step at a time, but aligned to the vision of an end-to-end supply chain resilience. So, for the longest time, we used to talk about supply chain excellence, but with this whole disruption that is staring at our face, I feel supply chain resilience takes center stage, and I think that's my parting statement.
Thank you very much, Ashish. I have to agree with that statement. Resilience is first priority and will be for a long time now. Everything around us is changing, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. We will be happy to share the resources that SAP is promoting and trying to use as tools to help at the moment. So yeah, let's hope for the best.
Thank you very much for having me on this podcast. Really appreciate your contribution as well, because I love this conversation, and I look forward to hearing more from you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to go to www.elcottglobal.com and click the podcast button for all the show notes of the interview. Also subscribe to our mailing list to get our latest updates first. If you're listening through a streaming platform like iTunes, Spotify or Stitcher, we would appreciate a kind review. 5-star works best to keep us going and our production team happy. And of course, share it with your friends. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so do feel free to follow me. And if you have any suggestions on what to do and who to invite next, don't hesitate to drop me a note. And if you're looking to hire top executives in supply chain or transform your business, of course, contact us as well to find out how we can help.